I think cellular automatons are fascinating. How such simple rules can generate so much complex behaviors. How did a simple grid can spontaneously create structures which can evolve almost indefinitely? Today, I speak about a thing I programmed recently but which fascinates searchers since dozens of years. A cellular automaton is a grid composed of cells. Each of these cells contain a value, and each cell changes value depending on the values of the cells around, following some rules, which can be any. For example, we can imagine a cellular automaton in 2 dimensions, where each cell can only have 2 different values, 0 and 1. By convention, we will represent the 0 cell in black and the 1 cell in white, but keep in mind that we can use more values than 0 and 1, and that we can represent them as we wish. Now let's imagine that a black cell, so a cell of value 0, represents a dead cell, and in the same way let's imagine that a white cell is a living cell. Good, now that we have our grid, let's create some rules. To start, we will not make anything tricky, and for each cell, we will only consider the 8 cells around. To stay alive at the next step, a white cell must be surrounded by 2 or 3 other living cells, otherwise it dies and becomes black. The same way, a dead cell can rebirth at the next step and become white only if there are 3 living cells around, otherwise it stays dead. This system is one of the most well-known cellular automatons and is called the Game of Life, created by John Conway in 1970. Cellular automatons, similar to the Game of Life, each have a rule which determines their behaviors. For example, for the Game of Life I just described, this rule is B3S23, which means that a cell can be born only with 3 cells around, and that a living cell can stay alive only with 2 or 3 cells around. Since the beginning of this video, you can see different rules with different kind of behaviors. Each rule has some well-defined structure that I quickly will talk about. First, there is the still lives, which never change if nothing comes over them. In the classic Game of Life, we can mention the 2x2 square. There are also the oscillators, which are structures which change at each step, but which comes back to their original form after a while. We can mention, also in the classic Game of Life, the blinker, a 1x3 rectangular bar which seems to rotate on itself. Of course, there is an infinite number of different blinkers, but I show you the easiest because I'm lazy to do more. There are also ships, which are just moving blinkers. Let me present you the glider, which is the smallest ship existing in the Game of Life. It oscillates in the period 4, which means that after a full step, it came back on its original state, but having moved. Then, with those structures, we can invent some more. For example, the puffer is a ship which leaves some debris behind it. But I let you check the wiki of the Game of Life if it interests you, link in the description, because I personally think those structures are far less interesting than the rules which make them exist. For the example, I will describe to you some of them. The Replicator 2, also called Fredkin, has for rule B1357S02468 and has for specificity that any shape that you draw inside will replicate itself 8 times around, and each of these shapes will also replicate itself. There is also the maze rule, B3S1234, which creates a maze-like structure. Or the rule Assimilation, B345S4567, which creates a kind of diamond-shaped crystal which expands itself when we create cells on the border of the crystal. Do you want more? Here is the slow blob rule, B367S125678, which, as its name implies, creates a kind of blob who slowly grows. But we quickly get bored of always use similar rules. We can fortunately keep things interesting, which for example the Hensel notation, which doesn't consider the number of cells around but their shape. This kind of rule uses numbers followed by letters, which indicates the number of cells and their shape. For example, 5e means that there are 5 cells around, and that those cells form a rectangle, including the central cell. On the contrary, 5-e means all the configuration with 5 cells around, apart from these which form a rectangle. The Hensel notation allows more complex rules and more interesting behaviors. The rule being a pain in the ass to pronounce, I'll leave you with some visuals. But of course, there's a lot of other ways to have fun. We can, for example, instead of counting the 8 cells directly around, consider the cells a little further on. We can also decide to consider or not the diagonally positioned cells, changing a little more the rules. And of course, as I said sooner, we can use as many different values as we want, and not only zeros and ones. I introduced you to some of the most well-known rules for cellular automatons, but nothing keeps you to create something totally different, like for example the cellular automaton of the Langton's ant, which consists to move an imaginary ant on a grid. This ant turning left or right according to the value of the cells it's currently on, and inverting this value before turning. A funny thing with the Langton's ant is that after a while, after having randomly moved around, it almost always finishes to create a pattern, which indefinitely repeats itself, and that no matter what the rules, the shape of the cells, or the number of values that they can take. Let's quickly talk about the Paterson's worms too. That's another kind of cellular automaton where you move an imaginary worm on an hexagonal grid, according to some other rules, knowing that the worm never takes 2 times the same path, and that it stops if it can't move without taking an already taken path. Some rules make the worm stopping after a certain number of steps, but others make it move forever. So well, that is a cellular automaton. With a few color effects, it can have a nice wonder. There is a lot of software which exists to test all I've showed you, but I don't present them, because I did not download one of them, and you know why? That's pretty easy to program. It's a computing science channel, don't forget. So, if you have a free afternoon and that you're interested in cellular automaton, even just a little, you should explore the subject, that's very entertaining. And now I'll leave you.